All right, hello, hello, hello. Give everybody a couple minutes to show up. Let's see who we got here. Got a couple people. That's good. Usually we start at about 5 after. All right, 2 more minutes, and then we'll get started. Also, please consider volunteering to be a scribe. All right, well, it's 5 after. We'll see what happens. Thanks for coming to our monthly meeting set up here for September 4th. This is an IETF meeting. It's the virtual interim for the DULT working group. It's kind of go through the preliminary. This is the note well. These are the policies and procedures that we operate under. There's a bunch of links in there about the internet standards process, working group, anti-harassment procedures, code of conduct, copyright, patents, and participation. Can summarize a lot of the patent and participation stuff is if you know something, you got to say something, you do a submission. Otherwise, don't participate. Um, what's next? This is the note really well. This is kind of the bit about just trying to keep it professional. If you think that you've been slighted in any way, you can contact the chairs. You can contact an area director. You can talk to the EOBuds team, the whole 9 yards. The whole bunch of process set up for that to make sure that we all do the right thing and behave nicely. Um, Eating tips. You know, I haven't got my video on because my kid is sitting here next to me. Luckily, he's also being quiet. He's homesick. You can turn your video off and audio off unless you're talking. It's also strongly recommended that you have a headset. Keep background noise down to a minimum. Agenda. This is going to be our typical working session. We're going to jump right into the documents and head right over to GitHub unless somebody has anything that they would like to present. And if somebody does have something to present, we'll obviously jump back. Our first concern was to get a scribe, but Christine has nicely volunteered till 12:30. So at that point, we'll try to see if anybody else is willing to jump in. And with that, I guess what I'm going to do is that I usually do is look for Maggie, and she's there. That's great. And ask, where'd you like to go?
Yeah, Jesse has slides that we prepared. I think we forgot to send them to you.
Even better. All right. Let's see if cool, great. Thanks for the offer. Jesse, you ought to be able to get in there and share your screen. Now, the question is whether I'm going to be able to click the button that is going to say, yes, you can do that. Jesse, there it is. Pass slide control. Yes, got to do it really, really quick. Does this look like it's working? Sometimes we have a problem.
Let's see, something is going on. It says select your slide, search slide.
Okay.
I think it only gives the option for chair's slides.
That's really annoying. All right, so let me try this.
I think you need to do screen share instead of slides.
Yeah, try that. Take back slide control. So I'll take that back. Yes, I'll take slide control back. You got slide control. Yeah, whatever. I don't need slides. Let's just go. All right. So now if you go pass slide control, try it again and see if that works. Yes, I want to pass. Deck is
it's still doing the same thing.
Okay, so we can try this. You can try to share screen, and I can try to approve that. I'm sorry. I think this is actually
I did that. I hit the request screen share button.
Let's do email. You send it to me, and I can get them up.
Okay, yeah, I will.
I can make that happen.
Do that real quick. They're on. They're on Google. So let me just share the Google link with you. What email address should I use here?
Sean at sn3rd.com.
Sean at
sn3rd.com.
N or M?
N. Sorry, N is in Nancy.
sn3rd.com.
Great.
All right. Oops. Send.
All right. Let's see if this works. Come on, Google. Be fast.
It
should be fairly instantaneous.
It is, in fact, being slow rather than fast here. It's my screen is it's making my screen freeze. Come on, Google. Okay. There we maybe go. Okay, should be
arriving shortly.
Momentarily.
All right, apologize for this. It's checking for mail. Come on, Scruffy, let's go. That is a line from a movie, I think Volcano, something burning down most of LA, and there's a dog running through from rock to rock, which would have been, fried, but they're like, come on, Scruffy. Let's go. Where did it go? Anywhere. Still waiting. Come on. Oh, come on, mail. I know. I apologize to everyone. It's the just-in-time slides. There he is. All right, invitation. I will open it. Where did it put it? It put it over. I want to put it over in this blank because then I can share my screen. Do you want to share screen? Yes. I want to share a window, and I'm going to pick this window. I'm going to share this one, and we'll go from there. So hopefully everyone can see this. Can I go into like view? Where's the view? Let's do slideshow. All right, so on full window, I can't see anything. So just let me know when it next. We good?
We're actually
see.
seeing your primary display, so it's saying click to exit full screen at the moment.
Yeah.
All right. So it wants to do this one. So, all right, cool. So let me do this. Let me get rid of this. I don't need the ruler and I don't need the little guide. I don't need the thumbnail. Where the heck is that? All right. Let me just, can I squish it over? Get rid of it. Come on, go. All right. Well, if you can see it, let's just go for broke here. So you just say next and I'll move the cursor.
All right, sounds good. So this is just to talk about progress that we've made in the threat modeling document. Next slide. So during this time period, we've clarified scope and applicability. We've expanded the threat model somewhat and added new scenarios in response to previous feedback. We welcome interest in developing this further. People's previous comments have been useful, and I'll go into the details of what this summarizes momentarily. Next slide. So talking here about what we've written and added to scope, and there is a there is a scope section, I believe, in the document itself, which is where did it go? It's section 3.5. If you are looking at the document, and I will link to that in the chat. So what is in scope, and these descriptions are more or less copied straight from what's at that link that I linked in the chat. So scope includes accessories that are small and not easily discoverable and able to transmit their locations to other consumer devices using Bluetooth. But larger devices can choose to implement the protocol, and they might do that because, for instance, they have tracking tag integrations. Attacker profiles, I'll get more into this later. Attacker who deploys any of the attacks described in section 3.4.1 is considered in scope. And let me link to that real quick. There we go. So this includes attackers who track victims using a tracking tag and applications that are readily available for end users, like native tracking applications. It also includes attackers who physically modify tracking tags, for example, to disable a speaker that would make it easier for someone who was being tracked to find the tag. It also includes attackers who make alterations to the firmware of an existing tracking tag, or who create custom devices that can successfully connect to the crowdsourced tracking network. And then all victim profiles are in scope, regardless of their expertise, their access to resources, or their access to technological safeguards. So we know that victims might have a range of technological fluency, ranging from almost none to being high-tech sorts of people themselves. We know that some victims might have very few resources, financial support with expertise and so on. Some might have a lot. But one of the reasons why we bring this up is because protocols should account for things like a victim's lack of access to a smartphone. And they should also account for scenarios in which victims cannot install separate software because things like device monitoring are very common in abuse situations. And for instance, if an attacker can see what a victim is doing on their phone through either physical access means, stalkerware, and anything along those lines, then the victim may not be able to install an app, for example, like the tracker detection app that I have on my Android phone that would tell them if there's a tracker following them. Next slide. So, attacker characteristics taxonomy. So these include proximity to the victim, level of motivation, and access to resources. And these are all discussed in somewhat more detail in the document itself, of course. But basically, proximity to victim includes things like, well, in some cases, an attacker and a victim might live together, but in other cases, they might not. The victim may have relocated. They may see each other infrequently. The victim may have relocated after the tag was put in their belongings. There are different ways that this could look. Level of motivation, just as with other kinds of cyber attacks, whether involving interpersonal control or not, some attackers might have a relatively low motivation. Some might have a high motivation. This obviously can change over time, as many of these characteristics can in an individual situation. But for purposes of being able to model threats, it's important to be able to consider the spectrum of these cases. And then access to resources. Some attackers might have more financial resources than others. Some attackers might have more technology education than others. Some attackers might have a friend who works in tech or be able to hire an unethical PI. And so all of these really should be understood as spectra. But for practical purposes, when it comes to threat modeling, we do have to be able to make them discrete. So, high, medium, and low, or high and low, or normal or impaired, depending on different categories. And that's true with the whole taxonomy. So it's also true with things like victim characteristics. Next slide. So, victim characteristics taxonomy. We already had some of these in the threat model. So, tech savviness, for instance, is one that we'd previously had in the threat model as our access to technological safeguards. So that this goes with some of what I was saying earlier about things like, can victims safely install technological safeguards. Access to resources can be financial, or can be something else. The new one that we've added for this round is expectation of unwanted tracking. So a victim may or may not actually be expecting an AirTag to follow them or some other kind of tracking. And I'll be talking later about some of the new scenarios that we've added that are meant to capture this. But some people know they're being tracked. Some people think that it's possible that they're being tracked. Some people, especially in cases with stranger stalking situations, it might not have occurred to them, or situations where a relationship is beginning to go bad and someone is still very trusting. So that was something we thought was important too. incorporate if active measures are required in order to find a tag, then someone who wasn't expecting to be tracked might not be using those active measures. Next slide. Other taxonomy characteristics. This whole section is new. And so part of this, well, let me see if I can find here in the document where this is discussed. Taxonomy. So that all of this is that I've been talking about for the last few slides is discussed in the section of the document that I am about to link to here. So the taxonomy section. Accessory usage. This is a new one because one thing that we want to recognize is it's not necessarily only the attacker who controls a tracking tag. So, and we've incorporated this into scenarios as well. So this could be attacker only. The attacker controls one or more tracking tags, but the victim does not. Victim only. The victim controls one or more tracking tags, but the attacker does not. So the attacker using the victim's tag against them. Attacker and victim. This would be both the attacker and the victim controlling one or more tracking tags. And also any of these threat analyses could be affected by placement of the tags, which is why that's part of the taxonomy as well. So for instance, the tag could be placed on a victim's person. It could be placed in proximity to a victim, but not on their person, such as a child's backpack. So some of the possibilities that we described there include tag on the victim's person or immediate belongings, tags in proximity to the victim but not on their person, tags nearby but not used for unwanted location tracking, so false positives by companions or on transit. That's not an attack vector in its own right, but repeated false positives might discourage a victim from treating alerts seriously. Or multiple tags using multiple types of placement, which could trick a victim into believing that they've fully addressed the attack after they deal with one tag. So these are both new pieces of the taxonomy, and they are listed in the in the category of other taxonomy characteristics, since they're not specific to either the attacker or the victim. Next slide. Redefined attack matrix. That the formatting did not have the lone D there in my Google Slides. Oh well. So this talks about our refined attack matrix. There is a screenshot of it on this slide, so you can read through it at your leisure. It is also, of course, described in the document if you are following along. I have just linked to it. So now you can easily go look at it yourself. And matrix factors include scope. They include impact, likelihood, and risk level. These are 3 different factors, but they both use they all use a low, medium, high scale. So for that reason, and to save space on the slide, I put them together. Affected users, so victims only, or is this something that can cause an issue for all users? And then is mitigation available for the attack? and obviously I'm only going over this very quickly, so I definitely suggest looking over this part of this section of the document. And looks like Sean, you have a hand up.
Yeah, hey, I just wanted to jump in here because I assume this is an interaction here. One of the things that we're going to have to consider as a working group, right, as we go through this, is that we're going to have to reach consensus on all of it, right? And so I think it's going to be interesting to see how we're going to have to, like, everybody's going to have to agree that, you know, the fifth one down, two over, like, that value's medium. So I think it's going to be interesting to try for us to try to navigate through that process. So I guess my question is, if we end up in this part where we're in this, like, we're in a heated debate about one way or the other, do you think that if we have to change from something from a high to a medium or a medium to high is going to have a major impact on the design of the protocol?
So I think, Maggie, actually, are you available to answer this question? Because I think you've been doing the lion's share of the work on refining the attack matrix here. So I'm curious what your thoughts on
Because
it
I
are.
definitely think
Yeah.
we need this, right? But it's the whole, like, as we move through this process, I have this vision of somebody like coming in and being like, it's absolutely positively not high, it's absolutely low, and then we have to be like, okay, well, how do we adjudicate that?
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good question about how this will ultimately inform the other documents. So, like, first I'll comment on the scope. So the reason we added the scope, we got some feedback last time that it wasn't really clear, like,
Great.
what parts of the protocol these attacks are relevant to. So, for example, some things might be relevant. We're going to have this threat model document, and we're going to have these three other documents. So I basically picked keywords to identify the three other documents. So accessory is the accessory protocol document. Finding is the finding algorithm document, and then network is like all the things about the crowdsourced network. And I also put anything that might relate to platforms under the network document. That's debatable about whether or not it should be there, but I couldn't think of a better place for it. So for now, that stuff is there. But so the idea is that will give a sense of like in which document that threat should be addressed. But then
Okay.
I think it's sort of
Yes.
up to the owners of those documents about how we want to consider the design. I think we're kind of making the argument that all of these things should be considered, but then like to what degree are they considered? So I think that if something is like considered to be like the high overall risk level, then there absolutely needs to be a lot of attention to it. And if it's a lower risk level, then maybe we decide, okay, maybe we just won't do anything about it, or we'll spend a lot less effort trying to figure out how
So
to
I get,
mitigate it.
yeah, just to jump back in before Brent gets in. I think that's a really good plan because I think it says where if we have low and then we're not doing something about it, that's basically informing the other document authors. Like, now on the security considerations, you need to say something about why we thought it was low and why we didn't do anything about it. So I think that actually, to me, actually makes pretty good sense.
Yeah, so I
Thanks.
think the most important column is going to be, sorry, Brent, just one more thing and then you can go. The most important thing is like, I think the column that really matters is like the risk level column, because we're kind of using the impact and the likelihood to inform the overall risk levels. So I think the biggest debate, whatever informs the overall risk level, is the part that people might have the most debate about.
Yeah, thank you, Maggie. Brent, go ahead.
Yeah, Sean, thanks for bringing that up. I every time I've read the document in the last few months, I kind of periodically print it out and read it. I always have tons of notes that I put in the threat table of like, is that really high? Why is that high? So this is a really good point, Sean. So I really, really appreciate it. So maybe Sean, would strategies like putting in ranges where ones we think might be debatable on the risk, and then also really clear justification as to why like a particular, why medium was chosen or why medium to high was chosen, have a really clear justification for that in the body of text so that we can hopefully get through debate in a less contentious way when it gets to this part of the process.
I think it could help, but I mean that's just that's me thanking Maggie and the authors of the documents for putting all the legwork in, because it does make, I mean, obviously this is the digestible version, but having all the backup would definitely be helpful. And yeah, I was trying to think like we just leave it in GitHub. somehow, but I don't know. It might have to go in the document. But I think you're right, Brent. That wouldn't be a bad idea because you will inevitably get a comment of like, why is that high and how did you measure that, for people who are just generally interested, and also those who would be willing to let this float for a little bit longer.
Yeah.
I see that Eva has questions. I do want to be mindful. I have 2 more slides, one of which should be very quick. The other shouldn't be that long.
And we're
and
going
I
to
know
switch
other
you're gonna
people
switch
still have to
scribes.
present. But Eva, is your question quick? Okay, I see your hand is no longer up. So real quick, I'm going to go through the remaining 2 slides. Next slide. So expanded threats and expanded scenarios. So the big thing based on the feedback that we got was expanding the scenarios to encompass different kinds of considerations. Like, for example, we didn't have a scenario before that was about that was about a stranger attacker, a stranger stalking situation, and now we do. We didn't have a scenario where it was victim controlling the tag, and now we do. So that's what I mean by expanded relationship considerations. Expanded tag usage considerations. That's essentially what I was saying about considering situations where the victim is using it is the one using a tag, or where both the attacker and victim are using tags. And then Bluetooth versus other technologies. This is something that I think is a to do for us. It's in our additional considerations, and I know it's something that we've been talking about, and I'm not sure we have like a clear answer. Maggie, did you have anything on that?
I think we were just trying to make clear which aspects of the threat model are relevant for if it was not a Bluetooth tracker versus if it is a Bluetooth tracker. And I think ultimately we're really, all of the attacks are really focused on Bluetooth. So we kind of
Yeah.
narrowed the scope to focus more on that.
I mean, and this goes back to when we did the charter, right? It's like, well, we don't want to just limit it to Bluetooth. We want to do other things, but then no one came up with what the other things were. So I think we should focus on what we know now and then see what we got. And then if somebody else says, oh, and you should think about this with other technologies, great. But again, it's a community driven process. And then if no one provides input, that's what happens. So yeah, good job. Thanks.
And that gave me a chance to find the link to the portion of the document that has the scenarios, including the new scenarios, so that people can read through that. Next slide, which is the final one. So future steps. Are the scenarios reasonably representative? What are we missing? And that kind of goes along with revisions. Balance of scenarios from experience versus scenarios from limited research data. So that came up for me because there's some research from the UK that uses actual data from their biggest domestic violence program, and then statistical analysis to create personas for like broader tech facilitated interpersonal control concerns. And there are some merits in being able to use quantitative data to create scenarios rather than doing what I've been doing, what the authors in general have been doing, which is pulling from experience in the field. However, the data itself has significant limitations. Namely, the first one that comes to mind is that people seeking help from that particular program, so the data set, are not necessarily representative. The authors of that paper acknowledge that themselves, that like situations where men are victims, for example, are almost certainly underrepresented in the data set. So there's the question of experience that in some ways may be less limited, depending on backgrounds of the authors, versus data sets that may themselves be limited. And then security considerations unique to unwanted location tracking beyond the access to the victim account, which is currently listed as a to-do for us. And then continued work on incorporating both the needs of non-tag owner potential victims and people who are tag owners but not attackers, like not jeopardizing their ability to use tags, not jeopardizing their privacy. And then, of course, as we've been doing, revision of the taxonomy is necessary. And that is the end of my slides.
Drew, did you want to jump in? Okay, I'll go ahead. Hey, so one of the things that piqued my interest there when you said that there was this balance of scenarios of experience versus scenarios from limited research data, is this a chance that we can send what we have out for input from the wider community? Because as part of our charter, one of the things that we need to do is get input from the wider community, and often the question has been, well, how do we get that? Do you have contacts with the people that did this limited research data to see if they have any comments on our scenarios?
Yes, certainly. I do have contacts with the people who did that research. If I remember correctly, Dr. Leonie Tanzer has done some work in this area. So I can try to find the paper, and I work with her in a different standards body. I see there's also the question, what does non-attacker tag owner needs mean? Yeah, that means legitimate usage and not wanting to simply throw away the privacy of legitimate users who may in fact be victims of some other kind of either cyber attack or interpersonal control themselves, not wanting to just throw away their privacy in the interests of addressing a subset of threats. And I see Maggie, you've got a hand up.
Yeah, just wanted to say, like, maybe Sean is kind of getting at, like, when are we done with this document, or like when can we seek broader feedback on it from like a non-IT people who are not following in the IETF, and I think we are pretty close, in my opinion. We the big changes that I was planning for this document for October, we're trying to get the terminology stuff hammered out. If we have some time, we can talk about that today. I have to leave a little bit early, but that's like, and then Brent made an issue a couple minutes ago that I need to look at. But I think from the threat model document side, the terminology, the remote disablement, which I haven't had time to look at again, and then whatever Brent commented on, I think is kind of what I would like to get done before I send it out more broadly. So I think within the next month, we would be ready to publish a next version and share it more broadly. So I think we're pretty close to done, I think.
Cool. So I will let you know that I've also asked some other people in the IETF who have volunteered along the way, who have not yet done their review, to actually complete that review soon. Because my plan is well, my hope is that we can actually get another document off ready before the cutoff date for the next IETF meeting, which I believe is cutoff date request for schedule. That's the 20th of October, actually. So my hope is if you can deliver the next one where you think you're like you'll probably get more comments, I hope, before then. And then if we can figure out how to address those and get to that point, we'll be in a pretty good space. Because yeah, I would like to have it as, closer, close as possible, I guess, as we think we can. I have no idea what we're going to get from wider community input, but I think that's good. And again, anybody else who wants to provide input should read and comment, because I know that I'm going to put my big IETF brain here on and do the thing that we do. I guess, so I know you said there were some other things we might do in this document. Before we do that, we've got about 20 minutes left. Brent and Sadika, do you guys have any, do you have anything planned to talk about for for your document?
We don't have anything this time.
Okay. So if that's the case, Brent, I just want to make sure I'm not, yeah, that's right. So Maggie, I guess we can hand over to you, and I will click on buttons to walk through the repo. Sorry, my kid is doing
I
sound
don't
effects.
really have. I don't think we need to go over anything else in the repo today. Those Jessica kind of got all of our big changes that we
Okay.
made. I would just say
Right.
that if people are looking at the document now, we haven't like pushed a new release yet, so I would just make sure to look at the editor's copy on GitHub. Also, if you think we should be making releases more frequently, I can do that. But if I know I'm making a change, I usually wait to make the changes before I
I
do
mean,
a new release.
it's really up to you, because I mean, the point really is to show progress, right? So if you make a big enough change and you want to spin a new version, that's completely up to you. But it's also fine if you want to take your time. It's good to know that I'll remind people to look in the repo to make sure they've got the latest one.
Okay, I don't know if Eva, if you want to comment on those now, that would be useful since we have time.
I mean, like, just as a quick overview, just that reliable power, reliable internet, reliable, or the idea that one device belongs to a single person, that one account belongs to a single person, those are really sort of the big ones that we need to think about.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
I've written those down.
that definitely makes sense. And I mean, even in the global north, some of those sometimes apply. I know there was a very interesting report from Malwarebytes called "What's Mine Is Yours" about things like account sharing and device sharing in relationships in the contemporary era. But I also know that that's a larger concern in the global south, as is, of course, internet access. I do volunteering in my private life with global south orgs, so I know a little bit about that, but I think you know a lot more. So yeah, thank you for bringing that up. And if that translates into any particular like comments or edits, definitely feel free to provide those.
Mhm.
Okay, great. Well, if we're not going to run through the repo and we don't have anything else planned, unless anyone else has anything to add, we can give everyone back 16 minutes of their life. But like I would say, make sure to go ahead and read the document, get those comments in either through the mailing list or in the repo. Appreciate it. Thanks for all your hard work. All right, and again, we have another meeting scheduled for October. We should start to think about if we want to have an in-person meeting in November, if people are going to show up, or if there's just if we want to have a meeting like 2 weeks after or whatever. So, all right, and that's it. Thank you very much.